Good afternoon and welcome to the AIB meeting. For today's date is
Not live yet.
oh,
We're live. We're live.
good afternoon and welcome to the AIB meeting for today. Today's date is February the 15th, 2024. We have a rather full agenda. Let me thank and welcome everybody back. For those who have not had a chance to say Happy New Year to, Happy New Year to you, and we are off and running for another session of the AIB. Let me first make a couple of remarks, and I'll keep them rather short because we want to get to the agenda today and make sure that we cover all the items therein. First of all, let me again acknowledge and thank our Chief Executive Officer, Rachel Heights, for her tremendous work and all that she's done in the staff. As I've indicated before, there's an awful lot that goes on behind the scenes with meetings that are involved with individual people and contacts with vendors and legislative members and others that take an awful lot of time and to coordinate with all of the various entities around the state. Just as an example, the tremendous amount of meetings and intake that we have, participation with the members of the General Assembly. I think tomorrow we'll be testifying in Annapolis, and again on Monday, probably next week as well. That does not include all the informal meetings that go on to get advice and to learn more about legislation that is upcoming. As it relates to legislation, we have a legislative package, an omnibus bill that will cover all the things which the AIB has in fact suggested that we pass this year. But that's on the tip of the iceberg of the many other pieces of legislation that are out there. There are large amounts of numbers of legislation that's there. We have not commented on those, and it's not our intent to do so. We have, in fact, looked at them, and we will continue to monitor them as we go forward. But our package is the one that we've adopted, and we will hopefully testify as it relates to those individual items. But beyond that, we have not taken an official position as it relates to other pieces of legislation. We have, as you know, an upcoming meeting with the MSDE. And let me again acknowledge President Crawford and the new superintendent, Dr. Carrie White, and all of the people that we've had an opportunity to talk with and to meet with over the last few months to ensure that we are working as closely as possible to ensure that there's no significant light between the work of the AIB and MSDE. We cannot do what is required of the blueprint unless we are working together. And I feel very strongly that we have a very good opportunity to continue to move forward. There's a joint meeting coming up next month. And what's the exact date of that, Rachel, for the record?
It is February 27th, beginning at 9 a.m.
This month, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I think we will get an agenda to the members of the board at some point, and we've not discussed it as of yet. And we'll have a little discussion about that today to make sure that you're aware of the items that we'll have a discussion about. But it's a continuation of the collaboration that we've started to make sure that we're all working together to ensure that we maximize and make certain that the efficiency is there to ensure that we do everything possible to move this entire process forward. There are an awful lot of things that we've covered. And as you know, the mistake that we've made repeatedly is that people assume that we've been in business for like 3 years or 2.5 to 3 years. And really, we have not. And occasionally, there are some things that may fall between the cracks or things that are not necessarily our responsibility, but that may be reflected in the press among other people. But we are committed to the things which we have responsibility for, things that may impact us. But personally, I feel very good about the amount of work that we've accomplished thus far. There are some challenges ahead, but I don't see anything that's not insurmountable. With that, I'm going to move now to make sure that we adopt the meeting summary. I hope that you've had an opportunity to review it. And if so, I would entertain a motion.
I move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's a motion to move approval for the meeting summary. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, then properly second. Any discussion on the motion to approval of the minute summary? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any objection? Seeing none, the summary is now approved. We have a couple of people before us for the public comment, and I think the first one is Daniel Helton.
Daniela, I believe.
Daniela? I'm sorry, looks like Daniel here, but Daniela Helton. Is she in?
Yes, I
It should
believe
be
so.
here.
Wait. She was. Oh, there she is.
Hi.
How you doing, Ms. Helton?
Good. How are you all?
Very well. You're on.
All right, I'll get started. Good afternoon. My name is Daniela Helton. I'm a Hispanic woman, bilingual, and a nationally board certified NBCT school counselor at Little Bennett Elementary School in Clarksburg, Maryland. I'm in support of clarifying that NBCT school counselors are included in the blueprint. The work I do as a school counselor can be seen in all of the Maryland Blueprint pillars. Yesterday, I was on a home visit for one of my low-income families, and during my visit, we engaged in conversations about placing the youngest child in preschool and reviewed materials for that process. Pillar 1. I'm a highly qualified NBCT school counselor, and as a Hispanic woman, I bring diversity with me. Pillar 2. I provide lessons about college and career readiness and host career days and invite our local high school seniors to visit with our youngest learners. Pillar 3. I coordinate therapists to come to my school and support my students. I arrange food, clothing, and rental supports for families in need, and I engage in weekly home visits to connect with families to address barriers. Pillar 4. As the leader of my student well-being team, we analyze and review data related to students making insufficient progress, and we determine how to best support our learners. Pillar 5. NBCT school counselors are essential to upholding the vision of the blueprint. However, there is a lot of confusion about the salary enhancement from the blueprint as related to school counselors. After contacting the various Maryland school districts, I have found that 4 out of 24 school districts give school counselors the $10,000 salary enhancement. 8 districts provide school counselors with salary enhancements that range from $2,000 to $5,000. And the remaining 12 districts do not give any salary enhancements to NBCT school counselors. I do not believe the blueprint's intent was to cause such inequity. In a recent survey I conducted in Montgomery County, 68% of 143 school counselors reported that they would engage in the NBCT professional learning process if the salary enhancement was equitable and school counselors were included. How unfortunate that our students are missing out on the benefits they could reap from highly skilled mental health educators. As an active school counselor, I teach 30 different classes and I provide ongoing social emotional lessons throughout the school year. Counseling groups are also available for students in order to address topics such as family changes, grief, anxiety, anger, and social skills. Individual counseling takes place multiple times a day and for students who need to speak to me so that I can listen and give support. I provide multiple ways of direct service to students, and I partner and co-teach with teachers to help children. Students in Maryland deserve the finest mental health educators. I ask that the blueprint is clarified to include NBCT school counselors. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you give me those numbers again in Montgomery County that you talked to?
Yeah. I can also send you my survey if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah.
Why don't you do that, then that's inclusive of everything.
Absolutely. I can add it to my testimony, but it was 68% of 143 school counselors that I surveyed.
Well, thank you for your work in our great county and the great state of Maryland. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any questions? Other questions?
I can't say. Any questions, Executive Director?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Dr. Terry Showers from Bowie State University.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you, the AIB, for allowing me to speak. My name is Dr. Terry Showers, co-leader of the Maryland EdTPA Collaborative and the EdTPA Program Coordinator at Bowie State University. I am here today on behalf of the Maryland EdTPA Collaborative. First, I would like to introduce the collaborative for those of you who may not be familiar with it. The Maryland EdTPA Collaborative was established approximately 10 years ago and has members from over 15 institutes of higher education and other teacher preparation programs across the state. Over the past decade, we have organized state and regional conferences to support the thoughtful implementation of EdTPA. We continue in this work with monthly meetings, ongoing support, and collaboration. The blueprint is designed to make Maryland a leader in education. Part of that mission is strong, effective teacher preparation in a traditional or alternative program. We want to affirm the important role that EdTPA plays in the development of strong teacher candidates. It is an educative and rigorous progress with proven potential to build the profession. While each collaborative member could share examples of its impact, I would summarize by saying that Bowie State University's faculty recognizes the significant value of EdTPA in enhancing our teacher preparation programs. By integrating EdTPA standards into the redesign of our courses, we are proactively ensuring that our candidates are well prepared. EdTPA has both enhanced the BSU teacher education program in many areas and increased the number of qualified novice teachers in the classroom, especially minority teachers. The members of the collaborative would like to express concern regarding recent proposals to remove the performance assessment from teacher preparation. We urge our leaders and policymakers to uphold the important value-added role of a capstone performance assessment. In closing, we seek the opportunity to be part of the ongoing conversation, and we would welcome you to join us at our monthly meetings or schedule other opportunities to strengthen our communication and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. How often do you meet? You say you meet monthly?
I think that
She's gone.
she's gone. But she did say that they meet monthly, and I will follow up with that because I think we would definitely like to connect with them.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, there are no addition, and there's a letter from them as well?
Sorry, we did receive written testimony from another organization, Anne Arundel County Early Childhood Coalition. It's written testimony that is posted.
Okay, thank you. All right, now I think we're going to the second item on the agenda, which is advisory committee update. And Rachel Abstead, policy director, please take over from that, and then we'll follow it immediately with the executive director's report from that point.
Great. Good afternoon. We are just admitted our Pillar 1 Advisory Committee Chair and Co-Chair into the room. At our meeting last month, we talked about a new process we were going to initiate to allow our advisory committee chairs and co-chairs to come before the AIB to provide updates on what they've been doing at their committee meetings. We've worked with Pillar 1, and they will be our first advisory committee pillar to come and share with you. And I'm pleased to introduce Ruby Daniels and Dr. Raina Miller, who have been doing outstanding work with the Pillar 1 Advisory Committee. So Ruby, I'll turn it over to you to provide some updates about what's happening in Pillar 1.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for inviting me to this meeting. So we have a couple of updates that what's going on in Pillar 1. So in Pillar 1, the objectives of the meeting, I have my notes on my right, so excuse me, to create awareness of the blueprint and engage Pillar 1 stakeholders. We also want to foster collaboration and dialogue among stakeholders so we know what's going on, and to highlight the need for public and private partnership and supports from various educational and philanthropic bodies. So at our previous meeting, we did invite a lot of the community stakeholders. We had the MSFCCA, which is a center base. Of course, I'm with MSFCCA, and we also invited MDAYC. In the meeting, we had Head Start, and we invited private providers as well as center-based directors. We also included the support that we get from the higher education. So we did invite University of Maryland, which they discuss about the curriculum that's available for private providers. And then Cathy Sipes from Notre Dame, who explained the P3 certification. That is the way that we could get certified if we had the bachelor's pursuing a P3 certification. And also Coppin University was in one of our meetings. Along with that are the public school early childhood leads or early learning coordinators. They were instrumental in telling us what's happening in their respective counties and updating us on what are the supports in place and how the blueprint is being implemented in their individual counties. So we had Howard County join us, Washington County from the west, and then we had Charles County and St. Mary's County on the southern side of Maryland, and also Frederick from Western County, and they also talk about the Judy Center. We didn't have Patty centers in our meetings, but we were successful in getting everybody in one space and talking about what's going on in the individual counties and how the blueprint is going on. So a lot of successes were highlighted in the meetings. There's a lot of good things going on. There's a lot of supports that's available out there. And we also had additional support from Montgomery County Children's Opportunity Alliance. They are supporting the P3, and also Montgomery has a community teachers. They hire the community teachers that provides mentors for private providers, as well as Howard County. Howard County also has amazing support for private providers like myself. So I'm the first year pre-K recipient, and I'm doing it on my own. So I'm actually a guinea pig, and I am, everything is new. So it's new for MSDE, it's new for AIB, it's new for everybody. And as family childcare provider, we have a unique business operation. We don't fit in any cookie cutter kind of operation. So we're not centers, we're not schools, and we operate in our own individual homes. We sometimes get referred to as babysitters, but of course that will change, right? Because the blueprint will kind of highlight the amazing work that we do and the learning that happens in our environment, even if it's a home environment. So if there's any question, then I will go to the key challenges.
Okay.
So,
Are there any questions? All right, let's go to the challenges.
Okay, so the biggest challenge is the grant application itself and the grant award timeline. Because it's coming up soon in March when the application opens up. But by the time we get the award, it's in June. And by the time we get the NOGA, which is the Notice of Grant Award, that's in September. So the problem would be the capital between June and September when we get the Notice of Grant Awards. I know that they are increasing the advance payment from 15% to 25%. However, we have costs incurred between June to September, and especially for childcare centers, that's very challenging because they have higher costs and they have to retain the teachers as well. Family childcare, we also have our own costs. And so we need some kind of like a way that we can provide capital so we can run the business until we get the advance. So there's like the difference in timeline, and the grant application itself is a little bit more challenging, especially for English as a second language providers. The budget itself is made for centers and public school. So it's, if you look at it, it's enough for somebody to get discouraged and say, I don't think I want to do this because it's very complex, you know. So if we can maybe update the grant application to make it simplified or make it easier for us to read, then it would help us a lot. The invoicing and the payment is also a big challenge, because we would invoice and the payment takes a while to get processed. Our suggestion, I know, you know, we could make suggestion, but it's up to the AIB to take it in or, you know, accept it or not. My suggestion would be, I think as a lead teacher, if we are considered a lead teacher in our program, that we should get paid as a lead teacher regardless, and then we can invoice them afterwards instead of, I know the grant is reimbursable, right? So we have to do the expenses first before we get paid. But if we are contracted as a teacher, we should get paid and then give the supporting document later on, because it's a fixed payment. So for family childcare like myself, that is very challenging because, again, this is federal money, right? And with federal money, you need documentation. The documentation needed is a pay stub. Majority of family childcare homes, we are sole proprietor. And as sole proprietor, we cannot put ourselves in the payroll. So we don't have a pay stub. So what are the supporting documents that we would need? So those are kind of like the roadblocks that I know MSDE is trying to figure out a way around it, whether we have supporting document that we are doing lesson plans, we're doing curriculums, when we have daily teaching schedules. So, you know, but they're working hard to make it work, you know, because again, we have different needs and different operation that is difficult for everyone. The other thing also is we cannot expense our facility as a family childcare home because we own the home, and we're also using our home as a daycare. So we cannot double dip. We cannot claim that as an expense with a pre-K. So technically, if we use the facility in the family childcare home, the facility is free, you know, because we can't expense that as one of our expenses. So there's a lot of issues that needs to be ironed out, and I am actually paving the way so other family childcare providers can participate and be part of the blueprint, the mixed delivery system.
Ruby,
So,
could I interject quickly and just say, Ruby noted that she's been a guinea pig, and she says this in many of our meetings because she is helping us learn as we go. And Ruby was instrumental in the development of the JCR report that we did on alternative high quality requirements that we submitted in December and coming up with the recommendations. So other private providers have come to Ruby through the organization that she leads and have helped us understand where some of the pain points are in this new grant process and have really opened conversation between the AIB and the MSDE. So through Ruby's efforts with the Pillar 1 Advisory Committee, she's really created a atmosphere where people around the state know that they can come and share both what's working and what's been challenging. And then we've been able to move forward on those things. So Ruby's, these points that she has shared as challenges, we've been able to set up meetings with MSDE and to look into it on behalf of all of the private providers to see what can be done to ease the challenges. And I'm happy to say that there have been some great improvements that we're hoping will be reflected in the upcoming application as it comes out. And Ruby's really helped us to facilitate trying to recruit new people to the grant program instead of people being afraid of coming. Because despite the challenges, Ruby has helped everybody understand that the end goal is that we do need to reach our 3- and 4-year-olds with high quality pre-K experiences. So Ruby, thank you very much. I think, did you have a few more that you wanted to share? I just wanted to make that connection to the report that was done in December.
yeah, so yeah, I actually, as a first-time grant recipient, I'm really enjoying myself. It is amazing. I do like the support. I do get a lot of support from the local public school, and including the Office of Early Intervention, which is I'm going to invite them in our next meeting. And they also, Howard County and Montgomery County, they hired community teachers. And then the community teachers are the ones that are actually mentoring us and coaching us as often as we want. If we want them to come every week, they'll come every week. If we want them to come every month, they do help us with the curriculum. They do help us with assessment. And there's plenty out there. We have University of Maryland, they have the curriculum, and it's amazing. They even give you the iPad, and along with the iPad, they actually give you the language. I know English is not my first language, so it actually helps because they give you prompts on this is how you can teach this lesson plan. So it's amazing. And also the Office of Early Intervention, which is child find. If you have a special needs child, they will come to your program. So I had the teachers coming 4 times a week, which is practically every day in the beginning. And they are actually observing me as I teach, and they are making comments, or they're saying, this is how I do it. Maybe this is a better way, like a mentor. And then after the second half, I would observe them teaching the kids. It's not only the special needs kids that's in their class, it's the whole group. So at that time, I can do my observation and assessment. And then at the same time, I get tips on how to teach the kids. This is how I teach special needs kids. This is how I teach regular kids. So it's amazing partnership that maybe we could take advantage of, because again, that's a federally funded program that we can also partner with and use to make the blueprint a success. So now do you have any question about that? So moving on, creating a hub. I know that's something that the AIB is tasked to do. So we're working with Delegate Solomon in House Bill 1455. And this is the Public Pre-Kindergarten and Childcare Providers Waiver Action Plan and Assistance Hub. So it's to develop a hub so we can actually create and replicate maybe the Aspire model, where we could just get the grant and then providers can be sub-grantees. So that way, the providers who are having a hard time or having difficulty getting the grant themselves can go through the hub, and there will be shared services, whether it's accounting, whether it's a grant administrator and stuff that we could develop. So there's other ways that we could make the hub work. But I think Rachel was saying that maybe we need to get some private philanthropists involved in developing, because I'm sure if you develop the hub, there's going to be some additional costs. But it's in House Bill 1455, and I guess the meeting is in March the 6th at 1 p.m. So we're supporting that. And there's a couple more bills that we are supporting the workforce shortage. That's big, because we have to increase the slots available for the community. And one of the House bill that I'm working with Delegate Feldmark of Howard County, because I'm in Howard County, is House Bill 831. And that is to remove the restriction of expanding into large family childcare home. So I'm located in Howard County, and in Howard County, because of the city ordinance, we are not allowed to have a commercial program in our residential home. But then large family childcare in Colorado, what they did, the Colorado model, is that for the purpose of expanding into large family childcare home, you are considered residential, not commercial. And that opens up a lot of, programs that can increase their capacity from 8 children to 12. Another consideration maybe that I'm gonna say to AIB would be if we can also align for pre-K expansion, if you have pre-K classrooms, if we can align it, the ratio from right now, the current ratio of family childcare is 8:1. If we can align it 10:1, that's aligned with centers and schools. So that's another consideration.
Ruby, can I
Mhm.
just clarify, when you're speaking about legislation, you're speaking in your role as the director of the State Family Child Care Association?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Just
that's a distinction. I'm not speaking as the Pillar One advisory committee, because I wear a couple of hats, and that's how I advocate for the over 4,000 family childcare providers in Maryland, which is also part of my organization. Now, the other bill is House Bill 1139, and that addresses the GO FCC, which is the Growing Family Childcare Opportunities Pilot Program. And that is to increase new programs, because as you know, we are fast declining. Family childcare, a lot of us are aging out, a lot of us are closing. And so we need to grow family childcare and have more programs. And I guess the bill would be permanent establishment of the funding, which is about $450,000 every year to support new programs that's coming, that's establishing in Maryland. However, I think this for looking at the centers, we should have create a similar program for the center, because it will also increase the capacity. Centers are also, one center with a capacity of 50, I mean, even if there's 2 centers that open up, that's 100 slots right there. For family childcare, if 2 centers open up, that's 16. That's enabling 32 working families to go to work. So I think for consideration. Maybe we should also look at a version of the Go FCC in childcare centers, because that's the only way we can increase the workforce. What other?
I just wanted to make sure we had enough time if
Sorry.
it's gonna make any comments.
Okay.
I had a question. That 10-to-1 ratio that you mentioned, that applicable in any other states or areas that you're familiar with?
No, but it's aligned with the blueprint that classroom is 10-to-1, and it's doable. It's doable, especially it will increase the number of slots in the family child care home, and then financially it will be an incentive for us to participate, because right now, if we have license for 8 and we have a staff, 2.5 will go towards the staff. So we're actually just earning enough to get by. And plus we also have to pay for our facility. So it will help family childcare a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. The other bill also that we're working with Delegate Feldmark is 1385. And that is the Early Childhood Pre-K Residential and Conditional Teaching Certification. I know I saw in the Comprehensive Implementation Plan that MSDE will not require pre-K teachers that are publicly funded to be pursuing the P3 certification. However, for the purpose of the pre-K expansion grant, we need to have a bachelor's pursuing P3 certification. That might be difficult for a lot of us. Just an example, when I did get my grant in June, I was looking to pursue my P3 certification. However, the CCC PDF fund application is already closed because it closes in March the 1st. So there's a discrepancy in the timing. So if we can allow the providers to have the same, I believe, in the public school, if you have a bachelor's and you plan on getting the P3 certification, if we are allowed to teach in our programs.
And that is actually, just for everyone's understanding, that is one of the provisions that is in the legislative proposals that the AIB has made to the General Assembly this session.
Yeah, I think it's a subtask 1.1.5A. Yeah. So tackling the financial incentives and the program expansion, it's hard for some counties because some counties private pays more than what the publicly funded pre-K tuition pays for. So I am not sure, but I guess I'm looking at the AIB's plan that we can avail of the benefits, right? That's available out there as a pre-K teacher. So the other thing, the proposed solution and pathways that we would like to recommend would be strategic enhancement of public and private collaboration, and that would be a collaboration with the private programs and the county, which is happening already in a lot of the counties. In our meetings, we heard from Frederick, we heard from Howard County, Montgomery County, St. Mary's, Charles, and Baltimore City. Baltimore's on the supports that's out there for the blueprints. So a lot of good things are happening. Another consideration maybe is simplifying the grant application and the management processes. I know in one of our meetings, we suggested this the grant application to be simplified. I don't know what is the steps that MSD is taking towards that simplification. So maybe if we could ask AIB to see if they have some plans on simplifying the grant application, especially for family childcare programs and childcare centers, so it's easier. And the other thing is the last thing is leveraging existing support. So we have, in terms of hubs and stuff, if we can utilize Head Start again is kind of like mixed funding, but I know in PG County, there's a center-based program that is being utilized by Head Start. So if they have some overflow in their, in their classrooms, or if they get awarded and they can have sub-grantees under their program, that would help us a lot. And also if the LEAs can also develop a grant process where they become the grantee, and then they can have sub-grantees in their community. Of course, they have to kind of look in the program, make sure it's quality. We don't want to sacrifice quality over anything. And then that can be also a sub-grantee, just like the Aspire model. We can also utilize the early intervention offices, like what I said, because they can be teachers or mentor teachers in our program. And of course, utilize the higher ed, because the higher ed, they have curriculums available. And then also there's that textbook funding that's out there that we can utilize. Again, this is just thinking outside the box. If we can use already existing programs in order to reduce the costs. So that's what my whole presentation is. And if you have any question, I hope not.
Ruby, Dr. Miller is also joining your co-chair. Dr. Miller, did you want to share any information about the work of the advisory committee?
I just think that we do a great job of inviting in guests. We've had multiple stakeholders, as you heard Ruby say, but for our next meeting, I know that Prince George's County, the LEA, is going to come to our meeting so they can share some of just insights from a view of a large LEA. I know the work that they do in Howard and some of the other counties will look different. I know what they do in Baltimore will look different, but I did speak with the early literacy supervisor, and we just really talked about some of the challenges that the larger LEAs have. And from her point of view, and I know that we have heard this in our meetings before, there's a lot of there's communication. People don't really know what's to be expected with their role. What should be expected. We've heard somebody say they didn't partner with Head Start, I believe. He said he wasn't partnering with his LEA. And so I just think that we really have the AIB really has to make sure that it is one message, one sound going out so that everyone understands their expectations. As Ruby touched on, teacher shortage. It's impacting the LEAs. It's also impacting the providers. And in speaking with PGCPS, they have 3 or 4 teachers, and they really can't go out and support the private providers because they're struggling to support the public teachers. So really, the teacher shortage is hitting all aspects of the implementation, I believe. And then they also have questions about the grant. So just echoing on what Ruby has said, these are some challenges that have been faced with the providers, but I think the LEAs are also experiencing the same challenges, trying to be diligent in implementation.
Thank you.
Let
Danny?
me quickly piggyback on the teacher shortage. In terms of our substitute, what currently the substitute has to have a bachelor's, also pursuing a P3 certification in order to become a substitute in our program. That is getting to be difficult because if I'm unavailable, then I have to close my program and I have to do a makeup towards the end of the school year. So that's also something to be considered.
Thank you. Okay, any additional questions there? If not, thank both of you for a well-done presentation, and thanks so very much for all your hard work in this pillar. This is important work, and we're really learning from the diversity of ideas and people that we have helping on all of these pillars. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to now turn this over to the executive director for her report. And Ms. Heiss, why don't you please start?
Thank you. Before we do that, I did just want to quickly do a roll call that we did not do earlier. So if I could just, for the record, note that we have present today Chair Leggett, Vice Chair Kerwin, and members Manco, Lynch, Doss, Robinson, and Stapleton. So we have all members are present.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. The first item on the executive director report is an update on staffing, and we are in the final stages of interviewing candidates for the communications and outreach director. So we are hopeful that we will be able to bring someone on board ambitiously by the end of the month. But you know, we're hoping for that. Yes, thank you. And then really just related to that, just briefly on communications, we do have a series of resources that we've been working with our communications consultant to create and share out with LEAs and other stakeholders for parents and the public, for teachers, and for administrators. And those are now all posted on our website under the resources tab. So they're available they've been available, most of them, to the LEAs. We've shared them out with the blueprint coordinators and others in the school systems, but now we've made them available for everyone. So hopefully those are helpful. And we're going to continue to build out resources by audience that will be available on our website, and we'll try to feature it more prominently on the front page of our website, so folks don't have to know where to maneuver to find them on the website. And then we're going to be posting this month for the data and fiscal analyst. That's an important position that we need to bring on board, as well as we're going to be reposting this spring for the two remaining education policy analyst positions that we were not able to fill in the fall, early winter. And those are focused on Pillar 1 related to early childhood, and then Pillar 3 related to CCR pathways and including career and technical education apprenticeships. So we'll be reposting for those positions in March. And then that leaves the research and accountability director, which is a very important position, and we're working on refining the position description for that role before we're ready to post that. And then we do have one more position that is in our budget allowance that has is being reclassified to support administrative functions and sort of the technical segregation of duties that's required around different fiscal approvals and procurement approvals. So that will bring us to full staffing of our 15 positions. If not by the end of this fiscal year, very early in the new fiscal year 25. If there aren't any questions about that, I will just briefly note that the printed versions of the updated Blueprint Comprehensive Plan are available. They've been distributed in Annapolis to the governor and members of the General Assembly. We also, they're available at the State House Information Desk for the public. And also a number of copies were provided on Mondays. Yeah, that was this week at Blueprint Day, at the Blueprint Day events on Monday. There is also a Google form on our website on the front page of the home page, I should say, of the website for anyone who wants to request a hard copy of the plan. And of course, it can be downloaded. It's been posted on our website for a while now. It can be downloaded for anyone, by anyone. The update on the literacy expert teams, things are moving forward very quickly. It doesn't feel quick, but it actually is quick. So this relates to the early literacy initiative that the State Board of Education and the AIB have partnered on with MSDE. The Miles Center, which is a partnership between the University of Maryland, College Park, and Morgan State University, are managing this project for MSDE and AIB, and they have been off and running in terms of they've posted for literacy experts that will be essentially, there's sort of two buckets of work that's going to happen over through the remainder of the school year. The first bucket is that the draft pre-K through 5 comprehensive literacy plans that the LEAs were required to submit in January. There is a team of literacy experts who have actually already begun reviewing those 24 draft plans and developing a rubric for providing feedback on those plans to the LEAs. And just as a reminder, those final literacy plans are then required to be submitted in June to MSDE and AIB. So that work is underway, and AIB staff has had the opportunity to review the draft rubric and provide feedback, as they're refining the rubric for what they're going to use for the literacy views. There's also going to be a rubric for the school visits, and that's the second bucket of work, is teams of literacy experts who will be visiting elementary schools across the state to observe instructional practices, materials that are being used, actual interactions with students, and also interactions between teachers and coaches. And so those school visits will begin, I believe they're scheduled to begin in early March, and then will be done before the end of the school year. They are going to be visiting approximately 90 elementary schools, and specifically to observe the pre-K to 3 instructional practices. And it's the combination of those 90 visits plus the 50 visits that MSDE's expert review teams are currently conducting, that will allow the 10% of public schools to be visited in this fiscal year 24, which is one of the requirements of the blueprint. And those expert review teams, separate from the literacy teams, have been going out on their visits, and we're actually anticipating the first reports from those visits to be available very soon. And we will provide a link on our website to those where those reports are posted on MSDE's website. Dr. Doss?
Yes, thank you. How will the information from the literacy team experts be used?
Wait, are you from the visits?
From the visits, how will the information and any data that they collect, how will it be used?
So there's going to be a report that the visiting teams provide on what they observed for each so they're going to be grouped by district, so that as they go into various elementary schools in each district, they will be compiling, based on a rubric, based on their observations, a report to the LEA, to the school, and to the MSDE and AIB regarding what they observed and recommendations for improvements.
Right, thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Manko?
Yeah, is it your sense during when they go and do the school and the classroom visits, are they primarily looking at use of the curriculum? Are they looking at instructional practices? Are they looking at how teams are using data around phonics instruction in order to push instruction? Like what are the things that they are targeting? And are there certain things that are going to be looked at more robustly than others?
So I don't believe that we've received the rubrics for the visits yet to provide feedback on, but I think it is all of the above, but perhaps with different emphasis. I know that while the teams that are reviewing the literacy plans, within those literacy plans, they're going to identify what high quality curriculum and instructional materials they're using, or the district is going to provide that. But I think then the look for is when you go into the school, are they actually using those materials, or are they using different materials that might not be aligned with the evidence-based science of reading? So that's one example. Libby, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have anything to add, Libby Diamond is our Pillar 3 policy analyst, and she's actually reviewed done an initial review of the draft literacy plans. And so I don't know if you have anything to add on that point, Libby.
Hello, hi, sorry, I was having a hard time getting off of Zoom. Rachel, I would say similar to what you said, I have not seen the actual visit rubric yet, but what I have seen of the rubric for the literacy plans I can speak to if you'd like me to, or maybe at a different time.
No, why don't you go ahead if there's something that you think is helpful.
Yes, I think that in terms of thinking about high quality instructional materials, the rubric is hitting on that. I think the biggest piece that I saw was around making sure we're supporting our most underserved students and making sure that we have things in place for our tier 1 instruction that's going to support all different learners and their needs. And then the professional development that is needed and necessary in order to get all staff and all stakeholders up to speed with what the science of reading is telling us in terms of best practices for teaching all learners, really. And it's not just foundational skills, but really K-12 literacy instruction.
Libby, there's attention paid in the plans or that you've seen to structure for response to intervention and just different various tiers of support for struggling learners?
Yes, folks are definitely thinking about that. The MILE team is also thinking about that. Again, with the emphasis on like, what are we doing for our tier 1 first to make sure that that is the best quality first. And then also, what are we also doing when we identify students who are struggling and what do we need to put in place?
Yes, Dr. Kerwin, you're on mute.
The Board of Education put out a very strong statement on science of reading. I was very pleased to see that. The one thing that I'm concerned about, maybe it's been addressed, but I want to raise a question. I am of the opinion that our teacher preparation programs are all over the place on the teaching of literacy. And that just is not acceptable. So I mean, we have to be preparing teachers that are going to be teaching with what we and the state board are mandating to be necessary. So what is the status of the certification of teacher preparation programs and this issue of their preparing teachers in the science of reading?
So that is something that we have been talking with MSDE about in terms of next steps. And I believe they've also are having conversations with the Higher Education Commission. I will say this, an update and discussion of the science of reading and literacy initiative is one of the items on our agenda for our joint board meeting on February 27th. So I will share this with the superintendent so that we can be prepared to provide.
Right. You know, there was some talk of our bringing the deans of education together that I don't think has occurred, but that might be an opportunity to emphasize this point. So I don't know whether there's any if that's still in the works or not, but I just throw that out.
The deans and directors of the educator preparation programs, they meet regularly, and AIB attends those frequently. MSDE is part of their agenda monthly, so that's certainly an opportunity where we could discuss this issue with them. But I think in terms of figuring out what the next steps are in terms of determining to what extent the teaching is aligned, I think is where we're at. And we literally were just talking with MSDE staff about this issue earlier this week. So we are following up on it, but we'll work on a very robust response for the joint board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Anything else related to literacy? Okay. The next item is an update on the outcome measures work group. And we did want to, in addition to providing an update on that work, which the group just met earlier this week, we also did want to share just some early sort of leading indicators or sort of early data that we do have that we've been working to compile around where the blueprint, you're starting to see in the data that things are happening. And they're leading indicators primarily, not outcome measures per se, but I think Emma was going to share some of that data that we've been able to compile. And we are going to, as we continue to do our work on the outcome measures and formal target setting around the outcome measures, we've recognized a need to just start to bring data forward that shows where progress is being made and if it's not being made, that where we can see that in the data.
Thanks, Rachel. I actually have a slide that I can show as a few slides that I can show uplifting some of this data that you're talking about. And as you mentioned, we met earlier this week with the outcome measures work group. And one of the things that we provided updates about the work that's been taking place since the work group met in November. A lot of that being meeting with agency staff from the State Department of Education and the Maryland Higher Education Commission to discuss and ask questions about the data that they've provided to us so far that are informing and will inform the targets that are aligned with the measures that have been identified by the AIB. In addition to that, we have been talking more about the ways that we can be reporting on progress and showing progress publicly around blueprint measures, one being the measure of minimum teacher salary that is embedded in Pillar 2, which is to implement a minimum $60,000 teacher salary by July 1st, 2026. So this is really an example, but also still tied to one of the measures of the blueprint's progress. And in the last meeting, we had some visual representations of what progress looks like at the state and local levels. And I'll just show you one of the examples that we presented and discussed at the work group meeting on Tuesday. So this is a line graph showing the progress that has been made and will need to be made at the state level to get to the $60,000 minimum salary by July 1st, 2026. So the years between 2021 through 24 show, or 2023 to 24 show the actual progress that has been made by all 24 LEAs unweighted on average at the state level. Starting with an average of $49,422 as the minimum teacher salary, going to $54,439 again on average across all 24 LEAs, and this is unweighted in the 2023 to 24 fiscal year. The rest of this slope shows what would need to happen on average if there was linear growth between 24 to 25 and 26 to 27 to achieve the target of $60,000. So as a minimum salary. So this is again a sample representation of what we could be doing to help report on progress that's being made at the state level on average. And we can apply a similar approach to sharing progress on measures and where we are relative to targets for the measures for which there's already targets embedded in the blueprint law, as well as for measures where we don't have a target currently, but we will have targets in the future, and we're working to set those targets now. So, some of those measures, again, are things like the leading indicators of progress that we've seen so far with regards to blueprint implementation that we wanted to uplift today and talk a little bit more about. We plan to use similar visuals to show progress with regards to things like pre-K enrollment, noting that as of 2023, or in the 2023 school year, 2023 to 2024, 23,784 students were enrolled in publicly funded full-day pre-K programs. And that's,
Emma,
again, yes.
Yeah, could you give me some context for that? Let's say the blueprint is fully funded and full implementation. How many students would we expect to be in pre-K?
We need a denominator for that. And that is something that we currently don't have and we still
Is
need
there
to
no
get.
projection of what that number would be when the blueprint was written, developed?
Rachel, was there a projection from when it was first developed? All right, look, and Rachel's looking that up.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice. I mean, 23 sounds wonderful, but
Yeah.
is that like a tiny fraction of what we hope to achieve, or are we, 50% of the way there? That would be two different things.
Yeah, Rachel, go ahead.
So the original projections, and this is from, 2018,
Right.
were at full, based on a whole bunch of assumptions.
Right.
That we would need about 65,000 slots.
Okay, so this is pretty good. I mean, we're over a third of the way there.
And I think the other thing to note here is that we are getting back we're making progress towards pre-pandemic levels. We're not
Right.
quite where we were, but
Yeah.
the data is showing that progress is being
Okay,
made,
thank you.
which is significant as well. But thank you for that question, Dr. Cohen.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Emma. Just to, one of the many, many challenges is that the projections were done pre-pandemic. And so the world we're living in right now does not look like what was expected when we were doing this work in 2018.
And again, knowing that one of the leading or one of the expectations, one of the expected outcomes, the goals of the blueprint that we want to see is increased readiness for students who are entering kindergarten.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So knowing that's one of the expected outcomes that we want to see, knowing that there's increases in pre-K enrollment. This makes this a leading indicator of
should boost the kindergarten readiness score, which would be a really good thing for us to be. So Emma, where are you mentioned these are things we could put out there. Where would we place, how would the public know about these indicators? How would we get the word out?
I think that honestly, meetings like this is one of the first places that we should be uplifting this. And that was part of what we wanted to talk about and share today. Other avenues that we have, eventually being able to put things like this on the website. Yes.
Before you go on, I want to come back to that, Britt, because I've got some ideas about
Okay,
how
great.
be part of this.
It's so important, and we need to, great. I'd love to talk further about it.
Yeah, okay.
And the
But
outcome.
one other indicator, I'm not sure it's, we have the information, but one of the challenges that I heard early on were the number of vacancies of teachers in various LEAs around the state. And in talking to a number of superintendents, anecdotally, they indicated that, at least based that there may be improvement in that. Do we have any assessment of what that looked like compared to a couple of years ago to, immediately post-pandemic to where we are now? If not, we need to get that information, take a look at that.
Yep, we can definitely get that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can look at that. I think the number of conditional teachers, at least statewide, is not as high as it was last year.
Okay.
But it's still much higher than it was before the pandemic.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we can absolutely get that data.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Doss, I see your hand. Member Doss.
Thank you, Emma. And this is similar to Dr. Kerwin's concern or question. When we're looking at this slide, how do we, if we want to get this information out and we want to show the public and other entities how we're improving or where we're improving, how do we get the full picture in there so that when I'm reading, I can see that if over 700 Maryland public school teachers earn the MBC, how does that relate? Is that a great thing, or is it just a good thing, or is it just an okay thing?
Yeah.
I
That's I come back with separately, because I need to make sure we coordinate this with our communication people. And so my intent is to have a follow-up on this. And if we can wait for that, I think it'll be much more comprehensive to look at
Okay.
a complete communication plan about what you just described.
Okay.
And if, Mr. Chair, I know you want to hold that, but I will just say, I think this is part of the challenge right at this moment is how do we share data and the context for the data while we're still doing the work of setting actual targets or expectations for when measures will be achieved. So we're kind of in this challenging spot where we need to provide context. I totally agree with that. But we also need to preserve the fact that we are going to be setting targets and have expectations that we're going to hold everyone accountable for. So, but the chair and I had talked earlier about bringing our communications team back to talk with us about the best way to move forward.
And I know that AIB and MSD are continuing to work collaboratively to set these aligned targets aligned with these measures and to ensure that the targets that are set are aligned between agencies. And we're looking forward to collaborating further at the joint meeting between AIB and MSBE coming up. So we're looking forward to that conversation.
So the alignment of expectations and sort of targets across the AIB with the outcome measures work group and the comprehensive plan, MSDE with their strategic plan priorities, and then we also have the governor's plan that was released, I think, a week and a half ago or so, that identifies specific education measures that they want to be looking at for progress. So that's part of the agenda for the joint board meeting on February 27th.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Emma.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is real minor, Emma, but just out of curiosity, what the 700 Maryland teachers that earned national board certification in 2023, do we know what those numbers were in 22 and 21?
Oh man, I wish that when I had that up, I was like, I wish I had that handy. I know it's the highest number by far.
Sure. Well, I mean, so you know, I think it's important to not. I mean, like, you know, this is a large portion of the theory of action, and if you believe in national board certification, which I do as a means of outstanding professional development for teachers and chance to retain our best teachers and to elevate the profession and to create a community amongst exceptional teachers, then, you know, going from 711 people who were attempting in 22 to 2,372 in 23, and 700 of which achieved certification, seems like it's, you know, these are very, very promising measures that hopefully will continue to pay dividends for all of the students in those 700 classrooms of those outstanding teachers. So yeah, I mean, this seems to be very positive evidence that, you know, at least there's some early there's some you know, early data that is moving that in a positive direction that will support our kids across the state.
Thank you. And I think that part of the concern, I wouldn't say concern, the issue about having numbers related to national board certification achievement that are reliable from prior years is how it was previously tracked at the state level. And it's only really recent that NBC certification has been tracked at the state level, as far as I know. And I believe that that's a new measure that's being comprehensively tracked. So I think that that's part of the issue with not having that number readily available. But I can look and see if there's anything else that I can provide related to that. Okay. Well, thank you all so much, and let me know if you have any other questions.
Thank you. Rachel?
The next item is legislative update, and there are, it's been a very, there are a lot of bills that have been introduced this session. Actually, I saw some numbers. It's some of the largest numbers of bills in a while that are have been introduced this year. The bill introduction deadlines were last week, so the bulk of the bills that will be introduced are now in, and we are tracking about 36 bills right now that have, would have some impact on the blueprint. There are about half a dozen that could have a major impact on the blueprint. One of those is the AIB's proposed legislation, which is Senate Bill 1102 and House Bill 1426. They've been introduced as omnibus legislation in each house, and those hearings have been scheduled for the next next Friday and then the following Monday. So those will be testifying on behalf of those bills to support the proposals that the AIB has made. And that includes the provision that Ruby Daniels mentioned around the high quality staffing requirement for pre-K expansion grants, aligning that to the requirement for the public school pre-K program, so that there's not a higher standard for the private providers than the public providers. So that is one piece of the AIB's proposal. Just as a reminder, we also included a provision that would allow the Departments of Health and Social Services to share information with the school systems regarding eligible families that have a 3 or a 4-year-old who may be eligible for subsidized full-day pre-K, either free or partially free. And there's also the provision in the AIB bill that alters the interim evaluation date for the blueprint implementation, moves it to 2026. This is consistent with legislation that had moved in the House and the Senate last session, and it just failed to pass right before midnight. But the rationale is that given the later start of the blueprint, that there really needs to be additional time before you would really want to do a formal evaluation of the implementation and progress that has been made. As we've been discussing, even right now, much of the data that we would need to look at to determine progress is not available. So that's part of the legislation. There's also a provision that expands I shouldn't say expands, clarifies that non-classroom educators are eligible for National Board Certification fee subsidy. This does not affect the actual career ladder and who's eligible for the salary increases, but it does allow for teachers, principals, assistant principals, and other educators to pursue National Board and receive the fee subsidy that the state and the LEAs provide. Prior to the blueprint, all educators were eligible for that fee subsidy. And it really was this is sort of a technical correction in that when the blueprint was passed, there was a definition of teacher as a classroom teacher that was created that then served to reduce the educators who were eligible to receive the fee subsidy. And we want those folks to have an incentive to pursue national board, because, you know, those are some of the very teachers that we want to become national board certified and then choose to return to the classroom and teach part of the time while doing other things on the career ladder to support teachers and students. That is not a full list of everything in Senate Bill 1102, but those are the highlights, and House Bill 1426. The other pieces of legislation we're tracking, we share updates with you. And at this time, the chair said earlier, the AIB has not taken a position on any legislation other than the bill that was introduced on the AIB's behalf. Were there any questions? And then the last item is the fiscal 25 budget. We do have our budget hearings with the budget subcommittees coming up tomorrow and Monday. And one thing, as a reminder, the AIB did receive a deficiency appropriation in the budget that provides the funding for that interim evaluation to move forward. We have not been able to move forward with it at this time because when you put an RFP out, you have to show that you have the funds in your budget to pay the entire contract, and that was not the case. So we are appreciative of the governor for including that deficiency in the budget so that we can put that RFP out. We would, regardless of whether the law is changed to extend the date of that evaluation, we would still want to move ahead with the RFP once once the budget is enacted and we know that the funds are available. We would want to move ahead with that RFP because it's really important to bring that independent evaluator on as soon as possible so that they are actually part of some of the advising us on some of the discussions and decisions that the outcome measures work group has been tackling around setting targets and how to evaluate the impact of the blueprint. So we would, regardless of whether the deadline has changed, we would want to move forward with that RFP as soon as possible. Are there any other?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. That is the end of the executive director report.
Okay.
The next item is the technical assistance grant. We wanted to, just as a reminder, as you know, we last year the board approved a technical assistance grant program to provide support to the local education agencies or LEAs and the CTE committee to support the development of their blueprint implementation plans and the actual implementation of the plans. And really, as you recall, based on some of the feedback that AIB staff provided with the review of the initial blueprint implementation plans, we identified a real need for the LEAs to get some support to think more strategically and more innovatively about how to implement the blueprint and sort of think outside the box. And so these grants have been made available to them beginning in October to support what we call strategic facilitators. So these are experts both in education, different fields of education, but also in systems change, in strategic planning. And this is something that, educators aren't necessarily typically, it's not in their wheelhouse necessarily. And so that's why we wanted to bring in these experts. 22 of the 24 LEAs and the CTE committee chose to participate in the program and have been working with their strategic facilitator since October on their plans. And they're receiving up to $100,000 worth of services from the strategic facilitator through the end of the year. And what we're really looking, the goal is that the plans that the LEAs are going to be submitting in March and in May are going to reflect that they've had this assistance and have been able to think more strategically, more long-term, and do some more problem solving around how to implement various pieces of the blueprint, which are challenging. And so those grants will end at the end of fiscal year 2024. When we created the program last year, we did create the ability to extend the program if the strategic facilitators were effective in the judgment of the AIB, and if the LEA and the strategic facilitator wish to continue with that. So that is where we are with the current program. We have received very positive feedback, both from the strategic facilitators themselves and from the LEAs, particularly the blueprint coordinators, around the impact that the strategic facilitators are having. It hasn't been easy, so I don't want to overstate this. I think there, some of the challenges of blueprint implementation, and even just wrangling the folks within an LEA that need to be part of the discussions and the decision making have been challenging. But I think having these strategic facilitators who really are just, this is all they're doing, this is what they're focused on for that LEA, has been very helpful to them. And as you know, the first submission of the implementation plans in March 15th, are all around this kind of vision, strategic thinking, and planning around blueprint implementation, and what are really the big challenges in your district and how are you addressing them? Just, and not like by specific pillar or specific task, but as a topic. And one of the topics that we know LEAs are having a very challenging time with is the allocation of resources and potential need to reallocate resources in order to achieve the blueprint's requirements and goals within the budgets that they have. And this is a challenge that we've been hearing a lot about, and we wanted to come up with something that might help the LEAs and the county governments with this work. And so we're proposing a phase 2 of the technical assistance grants that would, depending on the results, the evaluation of the impact of the strategic facilitators, there could be a continuation of those grants for some LEAs, potentially all of them, if that was what made sense, and to provide targeted technical assistance around specific topics that we know are big challenges for the LEAs, that they need additional thought partners. And resource allocation and reallocation is sort of the number one issue that we're hearing about right now. And so what we're proposing is and asking you to do is, for now, obligate $2 million of the fiscal 24 budget of our current year budget for these phase 2 technical assistance grants that we would award, and the grant period would begin in fiscal 25. So these are monies that we have in our budget currently, that we've actually been reserving for the possibility of additional technical assistance grants in fiscal 25. Our budget includes 1.9 million for that, for these grants, and we have some additional funds that we can put towards that, which brings it up to around $2 million. We may be able to identify additional funds that we can put towards this phase 2 of the technical assistance grants as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. But for now, we're proposing that we obligate the $2 million that is in our budget for this purpose. And this would allow AIB to release application for the for those who would like to apply to participate in the targeted technical assistance program. And as I said, the first topic or the highest priority is allocation of resources. There will be potentially other targeted technical assistance that we could provide, and some of the topics that we're focused on, but we're surveying the LEAs and the strategic facilitators to identify what they think the biggest challenges are for the LEAs, where they could use some outside assistance. But implementing a career ladder, they're in the process of developing it now. They're going to have to complete the development of the career ladder and implement the career ladder. And that also involves things like master scheduling, reorganization of the school day. It touches on professional development, induction programs.
Let me interrupt you 1 second, because you're going through a list of particular things that
Yes.
LEAs may need technical assistance on.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a target amount of obligated up to $2 million. So it doesn't mean that we would spend that. What I think we do need from you is, since we do not know in terms of targeting precisely what the LEAs may need in terms of technical assistance, how do we come up of saying that maybe up to $2 million? And why do you feel comfortable with that number?
Well, that's a great question. In the current year, we have put forward $2.5 million to support the strategic facilitators. So that includes the grants for the each of the 22 LEAs plus the CTE committee. And there's some additional funds that is supporting. AIB is facilitating a community of practice among all of the strategic facilitators and also blueprint coordinators. So the amount that we're obligating in this $2 million is actually less than what we provided in the current year. And so we're envisioning smaller grants that, and again, as you say, we don't know two things. One, how many of these strategic facilitators the AIB would even, consider the impact, the value of it as wanting to invest further in those strategic facilitators. So we don't know that. And then we don't know all the technical assistance topics, but the ones that we do know, I think could easily use up this $2 million. So, I mean, as you point out, if they don't need the grant funds, then we wouldn't want to, spend them for this.
Thank you. Any other questions on the proposed motion?
Member Robinson?
Yeah, I think the chair kind of asked part of my question. But the other part was, so just kind of to refresh my memory, in the first round, what were the number of LEAs that took us up on the offer or like went through the grant process and
22 out of the 4.
okay. And so in this second round, if you did not apply for the first round, you would not be eligible to apply for the second round, or do they get to participate, or how would that work?
That's a very good question. I if if an LEA sort of recognize that there might be value in it, they would like to work with a strategic facilitator, I think we would at least let them indicate that. So how we did it last year is we asked each LEA to indicate whether they wanted to participate. And so we're envisioning we will do that same thing again, either whether they want to continue with their strategic facilitator or, to your point, get a strategic facilitator, and or whether they want to participate in certain types of targeted technical assistance, such as resource allocation. And then once we know who would like to participate in what, and we get our application out, which is the more timely thing, which is why we're coming to you now, is we want to put the application out so that we can solicit applicants to be grantees to support the targeted technical assistance. Then essentially what we did is sort of a matching up based on preferences and availability. This time around, we're envisioning for the targeted technical assistance, more of a sort of a cohort group where a grantee would work with several districts, and we are also going to what we would propose to do is give a priority to LEAs that are partnering with their county government in doing this work around thinking about allocation and reallocation of resources. And so we would do like a cohort of LEAs and hopefully counties that would work with one strategic facilitator for reallocation of resources. And they would work both as a group and one-on-one. So it's a little different model than how the strategic facilitator model has worked this year, where it's really purely one-on-one, except for this community of practice that the AIB brings all of the strategic facilitators together once a month to share and learn from each other.
But since it's slightly less money, that might be to stretch the impact a little bit more by doing it that way.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the motion, if I can read it, is to obligate 2 million of the funds appropriated in the board's fiscal 2024 budget for the purpose of administering a technical assistance grant program for LEAs and the CTE committee. And
I'm going to make the motion. There's a second to it.
I'm going to second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we take item 4, which is a motion to obligate the $2 million for the phase 2 of the grant program. There's discussion on the motion on the table. So raise your hands, indicate you want to speak. Okay, seeing none, observing none from this side, we're now ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, which is item 4, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any objection or dissent? Seeing or hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. So we will move forward. We've been working on the application for this, and we're gonna work to get that posted as early as we can next week. That'll be on the AIB website under I think grant solicitations, and we'll make sure that we email out about it so that our partners all know about the availability of this grant and to apply to be a grantee.
Okay, are there any additional items from the executive director?
No.
Just a couple of announcements. Again, we will have a joint meeting with the MSDE on the 27th. Hopefully we'll have information before you in terms of the overall agenda and matters in which we may discuss. We talked a little bit earlier about our legislative package. We are meeting tomorrow and I think on Monday on our budget. And we have a real challenge with us in terms of information that constantly circulates out there. And I want to emphasize this again. The legislation that we are proposing is simply the things in which the AIB has adopted in terms of our legislative package. There may be a number of things that Rachel has indicated. There are probably a couple of dozen, executive director, a couple of dozen things that may be out there that impact us to some degree. We have not taken a position on that level of legislation. And there's another challenge that develops in this process, either between legislation and information that you may read publicly, questions about issues that the public, legislators, and others may have. Oftentimes we're caught in a sort of like a crosshairs here because there are items for which the AIB is not directly responsible for, and they may be in the bailiwick of someone else. And we have at least some level of responsibility for, at some point, responding to those things and working to make sure that our level of accountability and implementation is fulfilled. But all of the items that circulate out there are not necessarily things for which we have direct control of. Now, that may mean sometime in the future that we may have to do a stronger and better job of ensuring compliance with things that directly, indirectly impact us. And/or we may need to have additional legislation to see what mechanism we can get to ensure that everything that you see, everything that is written, all the legislative proposals are not always things which we are directly responsible for. So we have to sort of walk this tightrope, but it's part of the process. And given our diligence and our hard work, I'm sure that we will make great progress in explaining that and trying to fulfill our responsibility as best as possible. I wanted to say that for the record so that we can be warned about that. And if there's any question, please get back, see myself, the vice chair, or the executive director, so that we can make sure that we're all on board with that. With that, we'll now have, I guess, a motion to go into, closing the motion for a closed session, and we will adjourn here from the closed session.
Would you like me to read the motion, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Yeah.
For its last agenda item, the board expects to perform an administrative function and receive legal advice from counsel pursuant to sections 3-103 and 3-305B7 of the General Provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland. The motion is to close this meeting and then subsequently to adjourn from the closed session.
Okay. The motion before us. Any discussion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. Any opposition? Hearing and seeing none. We will now go to closed session. It is now 2:53. Let's move into closed session at precisely 3 p.m. Okay? About 7-minute break. Thank you.